Welcome to Politics Nation. We begin tonight with Hillary Clinton weighing in on the latest Donald Trump controversy. His comments that many believe suggested Fox anchor Megyn Kelly asked him questions, tough questions at that, because she was hormonal.
While what Donald Trump said about Megyn Kelly is outrageous, what the rest of the Republicans are saying about all women is also outrageous. They brag about slashing women's health care funding. They say they would force women who've been raped to carry their rapist's child. And we don't hear any of them supporting raising the minimum wage, paid leave for new parents, access to quality child care, equal pay for women, or anything else that will help to, give women a chance to get ahead.
Clinton making the point that the GOP's problems go beyond just Trump. But today, he claimed his comments were misinterpreted and said he deserved an apology.
Let me just ask you, just to clarify, if someone made such a comment about a female journalist, suggesting that they were on their menstrual cycle,
that would be inappropriate.
It would be classless and juvenile and over the line, right?
That would be inappropriate, but
yeah.
I didn't do that. She asked me a very inappropriate question. She should really be apologizing to me. You want to know the truth.
But nearly every other Republican running for president has said Trump was wrong.
Give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Do we want to insult 53% of all voters? What Donald Trump said is wrong.
In no way do I advocate, saying mean things about people. That has nothing to do with political correctness.
I think it's cowardly to share those kinds of demeaning, insulting comments.
The language that he's using is absolutely inappropriate.
Women understood that comment, and yes, it is offensive.
Republicans can't afford to keep alienating women. In 2012, President Obama beat Mitt Romney among women voters by 11 points. But among single women, the president won by more than 35 points. It wasn't even close. The GOP has a serious problem with female voters. And I'll go out on a limb here, and I'll say that Donald Trump is not helping. Joining me now are MSNBC political correspondent Casey Hunt and Joan Walsh of Salon.com. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Reverend.
Casey, let me go to you first. Clinton is tying Trump to the rest of the GOP candidates. Isn't that exactly what they were afraid of happening?
Well, Reverend, I think that at this point, Secretary Clinton is in some ways having as much trouble breaking through the noise as any of those other Republican candidates. And the reality is that, the Clinton campaign still expects that they're going to be facing one of the other people in this field and not Donald Trump. And so in some ways, it's actually muted their message and their attempts to hold those other candidates accountable for what they say are anti-women views. But it's really tough to even break past that. And I will also point out that also on Morning Joe, it wasn't part of the clip that you were just discussing, but Mika Brzezinski put policy questions on women's issues to Donald Trump, and he refused to answer them. He said, we're going to have to wait for the next debate, but he wouldn't talk about the nitty-gritty policy of equal pay.
And I think, Joan, that is selling. He would not deal with the policies, even on women's policy, when he's in the middle of this kind of controversy. And whether people believe that he was being hormonal, as most people that I've talked to believe,
right,
or whether they believe him that he was referring to her nose, which also, by the way, wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, it's not like he acts as if that's appropriate. That it may not be as blatantly sexist,
disgusting,
but it is certainly still inappropriate. But whatever your belief, it clearly says he has no real policies around women or concerns. I mean, has he become the candidate that the GOP deserves?
I think he is the candidate that they deserve because he really does share so many of their views. And honestly, Reverend Al, you and I have talked about this before. We have seen such an outbreak of misogyny and racism in the wake of the election of President Obama. This is not new. I mean, I've had conservative politicians say disgusting things to me with no backlash. It's just, it happens to one of their own. It shouldn't happen to Megyn Kelly. But, you know, now it's a big deal. But, you know, Casey makes a great point. He's complained about Megyn Kelly not asking him policy questions, and then Mika asks him policy questions, and he says, I can't get into that.
Wait till the next debate.
Wait till the next debate.
You know, Casey, the blood comment wasn't the only offensive thing Trump said about Megyn Kelly. Listen to this from the Today Show.
You reposted to your followers on Twitter a message from someone else, but this message called Megyn Kelly a bimbo. So in effect, you publicized that message to 3.6 million people. Do you think she's a bimbo? Do you agree with that? Is that why you reposted it?
I thought the kind of questions she was asking me were inappropriate, and they were the questions that you could make the case.
You could make the case? I mean, help me out here, Casey. You could make the case that she's a bimbo? And here he had a chance to say with any number of things. No, I don't agree with it. Somebody on my staff retweeted it. I didn't. I deny knowledge. He not only doubled down by not denying the bimbo retweet that he did to over 3 million people, he said you can make a case for calling her bimbo.
Well, these attacks, Reverend, are obviously attacks that can only be leveled at women. They are definitely gendered. And we haven't seen Donald Trump back away from anything that Donald Trump has said over the course of his presidential campaign. I mean, we can use cliched phrases like double down, triple down. I mean, I've lost count of the number of times that Donald Trump has doubled down on statements he's made that have been deemed controversial or that, you know, people in the media have said would definitely kill his campaign, and they just haven't. And this seems like the latest iteration of that. You know, Joan, you got to give the Donald credit. He's also been helpful because he reminded us this morning he's not the only candidate with a troubling record on women's issues. Let me play this for you.
So the women's health issue, which Jeb Bush so amazingly blew about 4 or 5 days ago when he said no money going to women's health issues, or essentially that. And with me, Mika, I would be the best for women, the best for women's health issues.
You know, it's nothing like bringing somebody down with you. I mean, very helpful of him, but how big will women's issues be in 2016?
Oh, they're going to be enormous. I mean, I think that the Clinton campaign, assuming that she's the nominee, really has a strategy for mobilizing women. They see the numbers that you played earlier, Reverend Al. But I do, you know, I kind of worried in the wake of the debate that people would not pay attention to the ridiculous and hideous things that the candidate said about abortion, that Jeb's comment about $500 million is just too much money, might be too much money for women's health, that these things were being obscured by this circus atmosphere. So it was very nice of Donald Trump to bring us all back to the fact that there were some men on that stage who said some pretty awful things and that are going to have a very hard time going after the women's vote if they get the nomination.
You know, Hillary Clinton, Casey, today also called out Marco Rubio for his position on abortion rights. Listen to this.
When one of their major candidates, a much younger man, the senator from Florida, says there should be no exceptions for rape and incest, that is as offensive and as troubling a comment as you can hear from a major candidate running for the presidency.
Now, she's in effect saying, Casey, that what Rubio's saying is just as offensive as what Trump said. Will that resonate?
Well, Reverend, I think to a certain extent, this is the difficulty of dealing with Donald Trump, right? I mean, it's the flip side of the fact that he can command headlines whenever he wants to by saying these outrageous, bombastic things. And if you're the Clinton campaign, it makes it hard to, you know, give your voters a sense that they should be just as alarmed about Rubio's much calmer seeming, but in their view, extreme policy positions. That's the challenge that they face. And that's, again, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. You know, that's the challenge for them. I mean, Scott Walker had a similar moment in the debate where he was asked about protections for the life of the mother in abortion-related legislation. And, you know, we're not sure where this Trump phenomenon is going to end up. I think if you didn't have Trump there, both that Scott Walker moment and also Rubio's position here would be things that could potentially, we would be talking about them as things that will potentially last into the general election. And they still could, but I think at this point, with what's happening with Trump, it's so unpredictable that I'm not sure that we can even go so far as to start having that conversation at this point.
Do you think, Joan, that we're seeing the beginning of the end as we've seen it predicted wrongly before? I mean, the new poll out, Trump is still up at 19% to Carson at 12, Walker at 12, 11 to Bush, 10 to Fiorina, and Cruz at 9. It doesn't look like it hurt him is standing right now.
No, I mean, at every juncture, people have said, oh, he can't say that about Mexican immigrants. He can't say that about John McCain. He can't say that about Megyn Kelly and Fox. He picked a fight with Fox, and he won. Yeah. Roger Ailes called him to beg him to come on the shows. There's a great
Well, we're going to talk a lot about that later in the show. I have the question, Casey, though, for all of you to ask Donald Trump that will really bring a lot of his followers to thinking, if he won for president, would he put a big T and his emblem on the White House? Everybody should think about that. Casey Hunt, Joan Walsh, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Ahead, new questions about the deadly police shooting of an unarmed college football player. Now, the FBI is investigating. Also, GOP's poor logic. You won't believe